people that we're angry at. The Lord tells us we need to deal with our anger quickly. Don't let it linger. Now, there's been a number of medical studies done that tell us that anger can affect us physically. Now, listen to these things. These are pretty scary. If you're harboring anger, you've got to be careful. One, your heart rate rises as high as 180 beats per minute. That's 3 times as fast as normal. Your heart just starts racing. You know? Blood pressure rises to 220 over 130. What's the normal? 120 over 80, right? That's very high. Breathing becomes rapid. Body tenses and muscles tighten. Sometimes you see people's face, you can tell they're angry, you know. Ugh. Stress tells the mind you're in survival mode. And then chemicals are released to clot the blood. And if you carry anger for a long period of time, that's very detrimental to your health. For a short period, it's okay. Now, go on. Anger impedes circulation. Lack of oxygen can cause severe chest pain. I've seen some people, they've been so angry, they start, holding their chest. Uncontrolled anger can lead to heart failure or stroke. And finally, anger stimulates the release of acids in the stomach, causing reflux and gastric ulcers. Anger can tear you up inside. Be very, very careful. London University over there did some studies on anger and emotional stress, and I found this very disturbing. It said emotional stress can interfere with signals from the brain to the heart. This disruption triggers abnormal heart rhythms, which account for well over 400,000 sudden deaths a year. This kind of anger can kill. It can kill you. We need to learn to control it. No wonder the Lord says, take care of your anger quickly. Don't let it go past the day. Don't let the sun go down on your anger. Now, again, the Bible says, be angry and do not sin. So let me ask you, is it possible that we can be angry and not sin? Is it possible? Well, according to this verse, yes, it's possible. Anger is an emotion that God has. It's something that we have as well. So anger in and of itself is not bad. It depends on what we do with it, how we handle it. There's righteous anger and there's unrighteous anger. Now we know God's anger is always righteous. God is never sinful at all in any of His anger. In the Old Testament, it mentions that God's anger or God's wrath some 370 times. Yet God has never sinned. Why does God get angry? God gets angry when we break His righteous laws and we go against His righteous will. Why? Because we were made to have fellowship with God. He knows what's best for us. And when He tells us, when He gives us His commands, when He gives us what His will is, when we go against it, it destroys us. And it destroys our relationship with Him. So He gets angry. God's anger is always balanced with His love. It's constructive in nature. And then it's balanced with His love. We know Jesus was angry, wasn't He? Remember, Jesus got angry in the temple there with the money changers. He was angry at the Pharisees, at the coldness of heart. When one poor man was out there in the temple area, he had a withered hand. He couldn't even move his arm. And he was going to heal the man, and the Pharisees were going to say, oh, if you heal, that's against the law. You can't do that. Jesus said He looked at them with anger because of their lack of compassion. And then He taught them a lesson in compassion and healed the man. Now let's look at that situation there in the temple. What happened there? Why was Jesus so angry? Let me tell you. In the temple, there was a place called the Court of the Gentiles. Okay? The Court of the Gentiles was supposed to be a place where people from all over the world, unbelievers, could come and they could know the God of Israel. They could know who He was and have a relationship with Him. What had happened at this time is the priests and the religious leaders, they took over that whole area. It was a bunch of money changers. There was a racketeering scheme going on. And so when poor people would come, they would bring a little lamb, they would bring a dove, and they would come in to sacrifice it. The priest would go there, he'd inspect it. He'd say, oh, I'm sorry, this lamb doesn't meet specifications, but we have some ones that are already qualified over here. Of course, you'll have to pay so much. And then the money was extorted, and they would rip people off. This was a place they were supposed to come to know God. And Jesus came and He was angry. They are separating people from me. And He drove out those money changers and He turned over the tables. It was a righteous anger. Now, guys, I don't want you to use this example as an excuse for flaring up. You know, you go home, your dinner's not ready when you get home, and so you turn over the table and you turn over the chairs and say, I'm righteously angry. No, your wife's going to hit you on the head with a pot. And no, that's selfish. That's sinful anger. Now, the truth be told, most of the time when we get angry, is it righteous anger when we get angry? Honestly, most of the time, it's not. Most of the time we get angry when we don't get our way. Somebody goes against what we want. We get envious. We get jealous. And we get angry, right? Most of the time, it's not righteous anger. Now, we all express anger in different ways. We have different personalities. Now, I'm going to show you a list of the ways that I think we tend to express anger. We call them the spewer or the volcano. This is the Hulk. We got the stewer or the pack rat. Pack rats, what they do is they get everything and they pack it down in a hole. And then we have the sprayer. This is somebody that just kind of lets their anger out a little bit at a time. These are all really unhealthy ways of doing it, but this is the way we tend to do it. Now, I'm going to show you a list. Now, I'd like you to say, is that me? Find out, identify how you express anger. Number one, the spewer, the volcano, the Hulk. You don't want to be around this guy when he explodes, right? Here's his characteristics. Number one, he says, when I get mad, I tend to let it all out. Is that you? I don't hide my feelings when I'm mad. I let others know. Some think I have a quick temper. My voice tends to get louder. Others think I'm intimidating. And then funny, I feel out of control when I get angry. That's a lot of the spewers. They feel like they can't control themselves. It's something, as a matter of fact, they don't take responsibility. They blame everybody else. This is your fault. You made me do this. You made me get angry. Now, in reality, nobody can make you angry. It's a choice. It's a choice that you make. My daughter told me the other day there was a girl at work and she was having a temper tantrum and she was yelling and everything. And then the phone rang and she said, hello. It's like that. Immediately she went from fury to very sweet. So you can control your anger. And if this is you, if you tend to be somebody that explodes, God can help you. God can help you get that anger under control, because this type of anger, it will do a lot of damage. You have to be very careful. Okay? How about this? Well, let me give you this example. Alexander the Great. He grew up, he had a friend named Cletus. They were best friends since they were little children. And there was one time when Alexander, he was out with his men and they got a little drunk, they were drinking, and Cletus started making fun of Alexander and putting him down. And Alexander, in a rage of fury, grabbed the nearest spear and threw it at his friend. It stuck his friend right in the chest and killed him. Alexander couldn't believe what he did. He wept, he cried for days. He said, Cletus, my friend, I'm a murderer. And he got that same spear and he wanted to kill himself with it. But his men stopped him. You see, when you blow up in a fury, in a rage, you can do some things that you never thought you could do. We have to be very careful with this kind of anger. Now, again about Alexander. One thing about Alexander was, this is a man that conquered nations. He conquered the world, but he couldn't conquer himself. Listen to what the Proverbs tell us. He says, he who is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he who rules his spirit than he who captures a city. 29:11. A fool always loses his temper, but a wise man holds it back. If you want to be wise, learn to control your temper. Learn to calm down. Do what NASA does. You know what? If you tend to explode, what does NASA do? They do a countdown. You're getting really angry. Go somewhere and do a countdown. 10, 9, 8, or count to 100. Start reading Galatians 5 about the fruit of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience. Get calm. How about this one? The steward. Maybe this is you. The stewer or the pack rat. This is somebody that when they get angry, they don't let you know. They just pack it all down inside. Okay? Listen to this. Number one, they view anger as bad. Maybe they grew up around somebody who was angry and they didn't like it and they said, I'm never going to do that. Two, they see anger as scary and uncomfortable. People think of you as calm, cool, and collected. You may have some physical problems related to bottled up anger. You know, there could be some stomach issues, some ulcers or something like that. Emotional problems. And they tend to avoid confrontation. See, many times with the stewer, there's somebody that's a people pleaser. They don't really want to tell you what they want. The problem with the stewer is they need to realize that anger in and of itself is not wrong. It's not bad. It's okay to feel anger and to express what you want. So they have to be a little bit more assertive. They have to learn to say, this is what I really wanted and what I needed, rather than just being real quiet, trying to please everybody, and then have this anger that's burning down inside. Ultimately, it's going to tear you up. You're going to have an emotional breakdown, or your body's going to break down. Very unhealthy. 3, maybe you're what we call the sprayer, the passive aggressive. This is one that lets out their anger a little at a time. One, they hide their feelings when they're angry. You've offended them somehow, but you really don't know. But they're planning something. They'll do things they know bother the other person. Okay? Like maybe they're angry about something and they're on the EDSA and they're driving along and somebody's trying to get by them. And so they'll pull up to another car, turn on the radio and sing like they don't see them. You know? La, la, la. But all the time, they're blocking the guy behind. Getting back at him. They tend to hold grudges. They engage in gossip. They indirectly get back at people. And they tend to be critical and complaining. Okay?